It's a creature from a bygone age, older than mankind itself.
I don't allow myself to think that they will go the way of the dinosaurs. I don't allow myself to think that.
Greed and corruption, myth and superstition have brought the rhino to the brink of extinction.
There are websites right now promoting rhino horn as something better than Viagra for men.
For millennia, its best protection, the rhino's horn is now its worst enemy.
Once you kill a rhino, you get rich.
If the killing doesn't stop, then the last rhino in the wild could disappear in just a few years.
One morning you wake up and there's no more rhino. They're gone.
In the winter of 2010, I was back in my native South Africa to report on the Soccer World Cup. It was Africa's triumph, a vibrant frenzy of fans and deafening vuvuzelas.
For people without stadium tickets, it's possibly the best free entertainment on the planet.
Not far away, in the quiet of the Tugela Valley in KwaZulu-Natal, I also reported on something more shameful. These days, rhino poachers come by helicopter, armed with powerful tranquilizers and a chainsaw.
The cruelty of this attack is just breathtaking. They cut deep into her skull, tearing away those horns. She's alive, but she's lost her ability to smell, she's lost her ability to communicate with the other animals, and she's crucially lost her only means of defense.
A philosopher once said that we can judge the heart of a man by his treatment of animals. If so, what kind of man did this? What I witnessed 2 years ago was no isolated attack. That year, 300 rhinos were killed for their horns. With acts of such heartless cruelty taking place every day now, that annual total will almost double in 2012. It amounts to the wholesale slaughter of one of this continent's most prized natural assets, by means both crude and sophisticated. Rhino horn is now worth more than gold, which means the threat comes from many sources. This amateur video shows a rhino hunt that may not be quite what it seems. It is a legal hunt, with a permit costing $17,000. The animal's horn could fetch 10 times that on the black markets of Asia. It's called a pseudo-hunt. The permit holder is an Asian national, in this case a Thai prostitute in the pay of a criminal syndicate. She didn't fire the weapon, of course. Private game ranchers did that for her. They're allegedly in on the scam. Until recently, foreign gangs could acquire rhino horn quite legally, just by sending as many accomplices as possible to buy permits. It's a legal loophole the South African government has finally closed. But not before pseudo-hunts were able to account for a quarter of all rhinos killed illegally last year alone.
We are seeing doubling of numbers of rhinos being poached every year, in South Africa in particular. And we are not seeing any respite at present. It is concerning, very alarming, and I think we are reaching a desperate situation where more than the present action is required.
The crisis in South Africa is really a unique blend of government lapses and complicity, private sector greed, and entrenched Vietnamese syndicates all occupying the same space. So I think it's a perfect storm, and we haven't bottomed out yet.
Experience have shown us that the rhino population does not drop gradually, it plummets. You know, when it levels out, it just plummets and drops right down. One morning you wake up and there's no more rhinos. They're gone.
Elsewhere in Africa and across Asia, only a handful of rhino remain. And it's all because of their horns, which aren't really horns at all. They're biologically closer to human fingernails. The trouble is that traditional Chinese and Vietnamese medicine has for centuries attributed mythical and medicinal powers to rhino horn. It's believed to cure headaches, reduce fever. In 2007, rhino horn became even more sought after. It was reported to have cured a Vietnamese politician of cancer. Demand and price suddenly soared. We wanted to go to Vietnam to follow the trade in rhino horn, but the Vietnamese government refused us permission. We were able to obtain this hidden camera footage of a dealer's warehouse in Hanoi. And here is rhino horn. Once, the trade in rhino horn for traditional medicine was legal. In the 1960s, up to 8,000 animals a year were killed. An international trade ban eventually reduced the slaughter, but that simply drove the trade underground. Today, rhino horn has emerged as an aphrodisiac. It's crushed into a powder and snorted at parties. It's thought to cure hangovers. It's presented as a gift to the wealthy and influential.
It is a fad, and this whole notion of showing status and what we call face consumption is a key driver amongst these upwardly mobile, nouveau rich people who want to, in essence, show off.
This undercover film shows just how complex the illegal trade has become. Here, in the South African capital, Pretoria, is breathtaking evidence of apparent diplomatic complicity. The woman with the shopping bag is an official at the Vietnamese embassy. The man she meets outside the embassy is known to the police as a dealer. As she watches, he places 3 large horns into a plastic bag, which is then carried towards the embassy compound. Is there government involvement in the trade in Vietnam?
Most definitely. Government civil servants connected with the embassies in Africa have been complicit in illegal trade in rhino horn on numerous occasions.
Investigators in South Africa claim the Vietnamese embassy uses diplomatic pouches to smuggle rhino horn out of the country. Confronted with the undercover film, the official wouldn't explain, and she denied that she was doing anything illegal. The Vietnamese government is in denial too.
They have not convicted even one person or even brought a suspect forward for illegal dealing in rhino horn compared to South Africa. They have no demonstrable political will to even carry out law enforcement or monitoring of their borders.
The law in South Africa, meanwhile, is doing its best to keep pace as Asian gangs conspire with affluent rhino breeders and even corrupt wildlife vets, all part of the poaching racket.
Leave our rhino alone! Stop rhino killing! Stop rhino killing!
Public outrage accompanies high-profile court appearances. This is Marnus Stale, the owner of a ranch on which several pseudo-hunts are alleged to have taken place. In November, his co-accused, a Thai national, pleaded guilty to organising 26 pseudo-hunts, paying Asian prostitutes to buy the permits. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison.
As the old Africa vanishes, this scene may vanish too. The white rhino, a remnant of prehistory, is threatened with extinction.
It's not the first time South Africa's rhinos have been in critical danger. 50 years ago, less than 500 of the white rhino species remained in a single vulnerable population in the Umfolozi Game Reserve. One bout of disease could have wiped them all out. As this old film shows, the South Africans found a novel solution: mass relocation. It was called Operation Rhino, led by this man, Dr. Ian Player.
Riders must keep the darted rhino in sight without exciting it any further. A tricky job. The sharp needles of the thorn trees rip clothes to tatters. Bachelors find it easier to heal a scratch than patch a shirt.
By the turn of the century, rhino numbers had rebounded to more than 10,000.
I mean, we were battling against time. We were battling to find the right drug. We were battling to find the best methods.
The first is an opiate, which will cause the animal to lie down. The second, an amnesiac, which will blank out the memory of capture.
Eventually, Player's team made a breakthrough. The development of a tranquilizing drug called M99, 3,000 times more powerful than morphine. But first, they had to get close enough to administer the drug. And they learned how to do that the hard way.
I mean, I'm blind in one eye. I've got drugs in my eye because I fired a dart too close to the rhino, and then I fell off a truck going at about 40 miles an hour, which I wrecked my neck, and that partially crippled me.
He has lost all fear, doesn't mind the touch, smell or sound of humans. The gentle, painless world of a rhino.
It was all an experiment. What was the best way to dart them? Today, of course, they use helicopters.
Players' methods are still in use. Conservation groups like the World Wildlife Fund relocate vulnerable rhino populations to safe havens using M99 and helicopters. But safe havens are becoming harder to find.
What makes you angry about what's going on now?
What really makes me angry is the brutality with which they have been slaughtered. I mean, to take a chainsaw to a live animal and cut the horn off, and in doing so, you know, cut half the face away. And I mean, this is not once or twice. I mean, this is what really gets me, is the savagery in which it is done.
Once again, the fight is on to save the rhino. And this time, it looks like war. Even the South African Defence Force has been deployed. And in smaller game reserves, private armies are being trained by men like former Special Forces Commander Jack Greif.
They're talking of rhino war that we're fighting. If you want to call this a war, then you've got to fight it as a war, and you've got to use military principles to get to the objective. You've got to have a very clear objective. You've got to aim at something.
It's not only the animals that die violently. Dozens of poachers have been killed in shootouts with anti-poaching units.
The average poaching gang consists of 3 guys. One of them is normally armed with a heavy caliber weapon to shoot rhino. And the other guy can be armed with a semi-automatic firearm like an AK-47. And then the third guy might also be armed with a similar automatic firearm or a handgun or hand grenade. They try and add as much firepower as they can get hold of. A number of suspects that were arrested have had some military background, and some of them have been in the special forces. So they are there because they know how to use a firearm, and they are there for the killing of the animal and also for the protection of the poaching team. That's it. Okay, right. En hierdie man, hy bly altyd so.
Greif's task is to give these game guards the knowledge and skills they need to beat the poachers in the bush.
They are dangerous animals, so they have to be armed. But the primary aim of the training we do here is to improve their shooting skills, because the threat has escalated. Everybody saw it coming. It was forecasted years ago, in the 80s already. The people warned, said, rhino poaching is coming in your direction. It's wiped out everything north of the Limpopo River, virtually, all rhinos. It's coming to your direction. Take note.
This is South Africa's largest game reserve, the Kruger National Park. It's home to most of the country's rhino, and it's also where more than half of all poaching takes place. It's dawn, and vultures tell us there have been more deaths overnight. I've been invited into the park by Chief Forensic Investigator Kobus de Wet. He wants to show me how they're using science to tackle the poachers. The army and police units that operate in the park must cover an area the size of a small country. De Wet and his team have been called to a crime scene close to the Mozambican border. I can smell it before I see it.
Oh, there it is.
It's a mother and her calf, and even the calf's horn has been hacked away.
Fricky now is using a metal detector to look for bullet casings, or?
For two things, for empty cartridges and something in the carcass itself. It makes it just so much easier for us during the investigation. Cut it open, you know exactly where to go to.
And what are the sorts of things that you're going to look for at the crime scene to tell you who actually did this?
Spoor, bottles. Why? It's hot. They have to drink. If it's a plastic bottle or glass, you might be able to lift fingerprints. And the most important thing is DNA.
Just as with a human murder, the rhino's DNA could be crucial in connecting the criminal to the crime.
I'm going to open it from this side and then see what's coming out. So I'm opening the skin to determine the condition of the organs, to see which samples will be the best
for DNA
related.
I've got to tell you right now, it's kind of hard to imagine anyone getting a lot of job satisfaction out of this work.
Yeah, it might be not nice now, but when we go to court, the success is actually your effort put in at the crime scene led to the prosecution of the suspect. Everything is going back now in this big container. All the data of this crime scene is on this document. So if it happens that somebody might be caught in 6 months' time or whatever the case may be, we can come back to this one.
From the poachers themselves to the middlemen, the sellers, the buyers and the end users, there are several links in the illicit chain, so the painstaking work of collecting DNA samples is vital. They're processed here at Onderstepoort, Africa's largest veterinary research unit. Dr. Cindy Harper is building a complete database of South Africa's rhino, both the living and the dead.
How many of these have you had in, let's say, in the last week?
In the last week, about 100.
Not all crime scenes?
Not all crime scenes, fortunately, no. The majority are from live rhinos, and then in between you'll have the crime scene sample.
Do you have a number at the moment of how many rhino you currently have on the database?
Yes, we have about 5,500. The DNA extraction method works really nicely, and we have had a lot of success matching horns back to animals, to carcasses. And it's not just the horns, you know, you can match tools that have been used in poaching, like axes and pangas and knives and things. You can match them back to carcasses as well. So it gives you that added forensic evidence that you need in an investigation.
Dr. Harper's DNA work has revolutionized the legal process, but the arrest and conviction rate is still tiny compared to the numbers who poach daily in South Africa's parks. With a rhino killed every 18 hours, it's estimated that 9 out of 10 poachers will never be caught.
You can't continue like this. You can't keep on losing rhino at the rate that they're losing. You're going to after 7 years, you're going to reach a stage where your population is going to be a lot of young animals, and then suddenly it's going to reach a level and then drop.
Rhino numbers are dropping, but without government funding for a thorough count, no one is quite sure by how much or how fast. Most people do agree, though, the time is running out.
I've predicted that 2014 will be the turning point. Just based on my experience in Africa and the rate at which rhinos are shot now, and a very important aspect is, you know, for a rhino dies quickly and it reproduces slowly. If we cannot get the situation under control, then our days are numbered.
Major Grief's trainees are preparing to spend their first 5-day shift in the bush. They'll have to work hard to see and not be seen by the poachers.
It's not that difficult to shoot a rhino at night. They are creatures of habit. They follow their footpath to the waterhole, drink, and follow another footpath away from the waterhole or use the same one back. So what the poachers do is they just sit by that footpath and the animal downwind, and the animal walks past there and he can take that animal from 2 or 3 meters.
It'll be full moon tomorrow. Round here they call it a poacher's moon. In large parts of Africa and Asia, the rhino has already been wiped out. In Vietnam and Indonesia, not a single one has survived. The bushveld plains of South Africa, and especially the vast Kruger National Park, are the rhino's last sanctuaries in the wild. But even here, they're losing a rhino a day. The biggest threat comes from Mozambique in the east. Poachers cross into the park on foot through long, unfenced portions of the border.
It's like a typical insurgent war that uses a neighboring country as a jumping off area. So they infiltrate from the neighboring country in and escape back to their safe base areas. Got the same situation there. And 400 kilometers is far. It's very far. You need a lot of people to effectively close that area down.
And the park just doesn't have that number of people to be able to...
I don't think the country has that number of people. You've got a few major rivers, all goes into Mozambique. Along these rivers are concentrations of people, even in the Transfrontier Park.
And each one of these communities is providing rhino poachers.
Oh yeah, especially the Masangiri area, which is just east of us here. That community is well known as rhino poachers and as suppliers of weaponry like handguns, AK-47s, hand grenades.
So we head east towards Mozambique. This is the main theatre of the Rhino War. And here we meet a platoon of the South African National Defence Force being briefed before a night patrol.
If you fail to compromise our mission, that means we defeat you.
The platoon commander seems to be giving his men an order. Shoot to kill.
The life of that person is out. It's already in my hands. I take him out. I don't hesitate on that. It's a message that I send to them that I take the rhino poacher out and I save the rhino.
But the risk of death seems to be no deterrent. Despite being warned against it, I've decided to go in search of the poachers myself by crossing into the Masangir area of Mozambique.
Across the water over there, the other side of Lake Masangir, is the Kruger National Park and South Africa. The route to get there through the bush and following roads along the edge of the lake is a sort of invisible highway for illegal migrants and poachers.
In this landscape of poverty, there are small, improbable glimpses of wealth. Could these be the spoils of rhino poaching? I've been told that men from here queue up to cross into Kruger on that invisible highway, to kill a rhino, hack off its horn, and get rich quick. Not all are successful. A mother waits as her son returns from South Africa in a coffin. Cousins Dario and Makombisi were killed in the Kruger Park, shot while poaching. In this tight-knit community, the young men were not the first to die, nor would they be the last. The cousins had taken Dario's younger brother, Batista, along with them. He was wounded in the shootout, arrested, and is now serving a 5-year prison sentence in a South African jail. The man showing me Dario's grave is another brother, Albert, now the family's sole breadwinner.
And which one is your brother's grave? This one here? And Albert, do you know why Dario was killed?
He said, the rumor said that he was poaching. He was killed by the rangers in South Africa.
In the Kruger Park?
In the Kruger Park, yes.
In the family village, I meet Dario's mother, Amelia Makuvela. She looks to me like a woman who's lost everything. Dario was not her only son, but he was perhaps her favorite. Among the mud huts stands a brand new house, a motorbike on the patio. These are Dario's things, and there is no obvious way to explain this relative wealth.
I want to ask you what happened to Dario. Why do you think he went to Kruger?
According to the South African police, the young men were heavily armed, and a game guard was wounded in the shootout. The result is that in this village, children have been orphaned. How many others are there like Dario, Batista and Makumbisi? Young men willing to risk everything. One man, I'm assured, knows the inside story. He's an influential local businessman, and I've come to meet him at a Saturday soccer match in Masingia town. Jonas Mongwe owns a fleet of taxis. He's a keen supporter of the local team, here playing an important league fixture against opponents from the south. At the final whistle, the match is lost. But Masingia will party on late regardless. And my interview with Mongwe will have to wait. The following day, he decides our meeting should take place deep in the bush, far from curious eyes. Mongwe denies direct involvement in rhino poaching, but he admits the poachers often hire his taxis to take them to meet buyers in the capital, Maputo.
Once you kill a rhino, you get rich. But at the same time, you die early because the risk is there. I've seen many people die. Even my brother-in-law was involved in that same, in one of the incidents. Then was shot and killed in Kruger.
Who's offering the money?
The bosses are coming from Maputo all the way. And then they come here to the village. They recruit, the youth, more especially the youth. They said, no, we've got money, we've got the weapons. And we as a youth, we're angry, to get rich.
Eager to get rich?
Yes, to get rich. They won't stop. If they kill Jonas inside, you can give money to another guy to go in. The line is endless.
Mongwe has brought someone else with him. This, finally, could be my chance to meet a poacher.
Aufamba wafika udlaji bedwana. Uliwanza kwenye munta akile la papa liko afarinya liko amali yakufika uakela mati la chombeni liko uliwanza kwenye munta wakumani bani wakuthisa vakupa wakungenisa jele ufika jele wafika ubiwa udla mthumiliyana.
To kill a rhino, an animal like a rhino. Do you feel bad about it? Do you feel that it's wrong?
Porque valungu va endlile swa ku a mali yi sukela ka lexi ka xiharhi lexi. Leswiyana hi titwa nandzu hinkwenu porque xiharhi xa khwati a nga fanele xi dlayiwa. Xiharhi xa khwati porque mina na mnavu ni titwa nandzu.
I came here to find out what kind of people could be so cruel. And Zachary wasn't what I'd expected. Someone motivated not by greed, but by poverty, risking his life to earn the equivalent of 2 years' pay in a single night. Back in South Africa, there is a man who stands to make more money from rhinos than Zachary could ever dream of. Far from killing them, he's farming them and harvesting their horns. John Hume is the world's biggest rhino owner. On his vast game ranches, around 700 rhinos jostle for space at communal feeding troughs.
I keep them to enjoy my passion, which is game in general, and the white rhino in particular, which has risen to the top of my hit parade.
While Hume's dehorned rhinos are mostly docile, the same cannot be said for their feeding companions. He also farms buffaloes, one of the most dangerous animals in Africa.
Buffalo would let us walk right up to him. In fact, he's probably going to walk right up to us. Yeah. Then I'll get out of the way. But I mean, these will move away. White rhinos are the most incredibly user-friendly animals you could ever wish to have.
Yeah.
They are wonderful animals. And the last thing in the world they deserve is the treatment we are giving them. They are the ones that are being persecuted more than any other wildlife in the world. So the rhino is the sufferer every single time. Right now, let's not push our luck, especially with that buck.
To me, these rhinos look more like cows. If this is the way to guarantee the survival of the species, then I have to wonder what kind of species will survive. Hume can afford to be a bit odd. His office is built inside a giant aviary full of captive animals and exotic birds.
I want to stop the killing of all rhino. The Vietnamese do not want to kill our rhino. They only want the horn. So why don't we cut off the horn, leave the rhino alive, and send him off with his horn to Vietnam? No, we can't do that. We've got to stop him. And what do the Vietnamese do? They deal with our poachers. So we will not see any diminishing of the poaching in the near future. We'll see an escalation of it.
It's an argument that presents Hume as a champion of rhino rights, rather than the predatory speculator some people believe he must be. But what about the dehorning process itself? I've met up with Martina van Zelenhout, one of Hume's vets, to find out how it works.
And normally the whole procedure takes 16 minutes from the dart hitting the animal to fully awake. 1/6 minute. 1/6 minute.
Martina is using M99, the same sedative developed all those years ago by Dr. Ian Player and his team.
It's deadly for humans. This is all I use, 0.2 of a mil. So we must be very careful when you work with it.
In a wild situation, how dangerous is an animal like that going to be to humans?
White rhinos are wild animals and they will kill a human. Don't underestimate them.
How long do you think it's going to take?
Around 5 minutes. The first thing you'll see is that she gets ataxic. So she puts her feet higher up, and often they start to look up.
What's the purpose of the blindfold?
It's just to keep them calm. They often, if you get the blindfold on, they fall much quicker. And also the sun. The sun is shining directly in their eyes. which is bad for their vision. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, that's fine. It's very important to not cut too low. If you cut too low, you go in the tissue, and then the horn doesn't grow back nice. It can get infected also.
Is she going to feel any pain when this is over?
And there's no nerves in this tissue, so there's no reason to think that this animal is feeling anything like this.
The horn will grow back, anything up to 9 centimeters a year. But that hardly seems compensation enough for having to give it up in the first place, a thing that has defined this animal as wild for millennia. And all thanks to humanity's conspicuous consumption, corruption, and beliefs held continents away that mean nothing here.
Yeah, ready?
Well, this is it, a 1.885 kilo piece of rhino horn. It's still moist, having just been removed from that animal. It's made up of the protein keratin. It's the same stuff found in human hair, in human fingernail, though I'm told that its precise makeup is closer to a horse's hoof. In terms of conventional medicine, there is absolutely no proven medical benefit to humans whatsoever. And yet, this piece of horn will shortly be making its way into a bank vault.
John Hume has rhino horns stockpiled in no less than 10 bank vaults. He won't put a number on it, but safe to assume it's many millions of black market dollars worth. Yet he insists his only interest is saving the rhino.
Farmers who are dealing with those Vietnamese prostitutes, pseudo-hunters, whatever you want to call them, those farmers would stop killing their rhino if they could cut the horn off, leave the rhino alive, and sell the horn. They would never again kill a rhino because it would be like killing the hen that lays the golden egg. And who would do that?
It's hard to fault Hume's logic. Legalise the horn trade and save the rhinos by farming them like cattle. It's a simple idea with entirely unknown consequences.
We haven't been able to model exactly what demand is and play that off of supply, which is sort of classic economics. The other element that we just simply don't understand is speculation. Now, right here in South Africa, there's one very prominent game rancher who makes a practice of stockpiling rhino horn legally. So he's speculating on being able to sell that at a very high value at some point in time and making lots of money. Well, how many people like him live in Vietnam, in China, in other places in Asia? And if speculators are harnessing supply, how do we factor that into the equation?
I am incredibly depressed by some of the people in this country who should know better and who are still saying trade will not work. Their favorite argument is we do not know the size of the demand. How can we address that demand without knowing the size? My argument to them is you are supplying the demand anyway. Whether you know the size or not is immaterial. You're supplying it, and you are supplying it all from dead rhino. Why do you not try and supply it from live rhino, and see if you cannot diminish the poaching?
Conservationists point to the hard lessons of the ivory trade. 2 recent auctions of ivory stockpiles had spectacularly different results. The first led to a decline of illegal trade. But by the second auction, demand had shot up, and African elephants are now being killed in their tens of thousands each year.
You make a mistake here, how do you put the genie back into the bottle? You have no history of success with any sort of legalized trade in wildlife. So why do you want to start there?
The decision whether to allow trade in rhino horn will ultimately fall to the signatory states of the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, or CITES, in a process that could take many years. Perhaps they'd be interested in the view of the man with more experience of rhino conservation than anyone else.
I must ask the question, the 60,000 black rhino that have vanished in East Africa, has CITES saved them? I've got to ask that question, because I think you'll find the answer is no. I have not saved them. But we have saved the rhino to the point that they are now. So I believe that we have got a bigger say than anybody else.
Player has another solution. He reminds me that the South African government has at least 40 tons of rhino horns stockpiled from animals that have died of natural causes.
I'm dead against the dehorning. Dead against it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you disfigure it.
Yeah.
But if we can prove that the sale, the legal sale of rhino horns through natural mortality is not going to do the damage that other people assume it's going to do, then I believe that we should be allowed to follow that route.
It's been 2 years, and I've come back to the Tugela River Valley to see how that horrifically injured rhino cow is doing. Ranch owner Johan Geldenhuys has named her Tembi. He's anxious to find her because she's heavily pregnant and could give birth at any time. It's late afternoon, and Johan has dispatched his game guards to look for her. Then he gets a call.
He's found her, and she's just given birth to a little baby rhino.
How does that make you feel?
Very, very happy. Hopefully this baby will survive to see another day.
Let's go find her.
We do find rhinos, and through the thick bush, the profile of one of them is unmistakable. It's Tembi. But there's a bull with her. Its dehorned face is covered in blood. What has happened to the calf? Then it appears, shaky on its feet. And it's suddenly obvious what's been happening here. Instinctively, Tembi has been protecting her calf from the bull. The confrontation has reopened her old wound. But they appear to have reached a truce. If Tembi's first miracle was to survive the attack that took her horn, then her second miracle has been to defy the odds by giving birth to a healthy calf. She's been living up to her name, which means hope in Zulu. But what hope can there be for an animal whose only predator is man? I wonder when the killing will stop. And when it does, what will be left?